My name is Sean Johnson. I served in 4th Brigade, 10th Mountain Division, 3rd Squadron, 89th Cavalry, Blue Platoon, along with Sergeant Doc Walters. In 2007, in early July, I believe it was July 12th, 2007, we were tasked with route clearance patrols along the MSRs. We operated in split platoons, split sections. I was the lead scout driver. At the time we were driving through Diwania, going through a traffic circle and going through town, and all that day things seemed a little strange, out of place. My gunner, Jeff Rogers, and I had spoken before about rotating in our truck, rotating positions. I was going to be the gunner, he was going to be the driver, but things just didn't feel right. And so we continued with our mission, going through Diwania, and I remember mentioning to him that something in my gut was saying it wasn't right, it wasn't good. And he felt it too. We continued on and dropped off some operatives to pull OP, watching a chicken farm where they'd supposedly been dealing some rockets. And we turned back around, go back through Diwania, and that very spot where I had that gut feeling, boom, IED goes off. Went off in between our truck and the truck behind us. There was no casualties. We were taking some small arms fire. Our gunners returned fire and we continued to drive on. I remember jumping the curb and asking Sergeant Blake what position he wanted me to take. He said, just continue driving. So I hopped the curb and we continued through the circle and continued on our way. A little bit of shrapnel to the trucks, no major damage, and that was our first contact as a section. And I remember everybody's motivation was high and there was some excitement. A little bit later, we ran into a military police unit and we established comms with them and told them that we would leapfrog in front of them and take up the lead and clear the route. We were getting closer to about checkpoint 7 Bravo, and I remember driving and just seeing a bright white flash to my right side in the front. I don't remember hearing anything, but I just remember seeing that bright flash. Next thing I know, the vehicle was completely destroyed. Nothing worked except for the lights. I patted myself down, checked myself for any wounds. I remember seeing some flickering in the back. There was a fire behind my seat, which is also where the ammunition was stored. I looked over at Sergeant Blake. He was hunched over, had a large laceration on the back side of his neck. And Jeff was in the back praying, and I knew something was seriously wrong, but I didn't know how bad it was. I immediately picked up the ham mic trying to establish comms, but the radios were gone completely. And so I referred back to what I'd been trained to do in basic training and when I first arrived in my unit. And that was that I was told, when all else fails, turn your blinkers on to establish where the contact's coming from if you can't speak to anybody. That wasn't necessarily something I learned when I reached 389, but it was something that they said in basic. If you take contact to the right, put your right blinker on. You take contact to the left, put your left blinker on. Well, I put a 4-way blinkers on just to allow everybody to know that there's still somebody alive in the truck. I was in an 1117 ASV. There's no way to get in from the outside unless you have a key. And so I open my hatch and I look over at Sergeant Blake. I try to check his vitals, see if he's breathing. I wasn't getting any respirations. Couldn't find any pulse, so I just grabbed his hand. And I said, Sergeant Blake, if you can hear me, just squeeze. And he just ever so slightly squeezed my hand, so I knew he was at least still alive. And I could hear Rogers in the back. At that moment, Sergeant Capon came up above my hatch. He checked on me and was seeing if everybody was all right, and in a very calm, collected voice, I said, Sergeant Capon, I've got this under control. There's a fire and I need an extinguisher. And even to this day, he still continues to tell his soldiers and people that he served with that he had been through so much. He was a recon Marine, a sniper. He was an Army Ranger and a section sergeant. And he'd been through so much, but he was surprised at how a brand new private first class, straight out of basic training, could be so calm and be so collected and know what to do in this situation. So he left. I opened up the hatches. I began to drag Sergeant Blake out of the seat. At that moment, Doc was just arriving, and he and I had worked on getting Rogers out from the seat. I had put my hand up on the gunner's platform and the gunner's seat, and me, amazingly, was covered in shrapnel, but I didn't have a single wound, and the only thing that I took away was a staple that had been lodged into the palm of my hand from the gunner's seat. But we get everybody pulled out, and Jeff had lost his arm. An EFP had ripped right through the truck, crossed his lap, and took his right arm. Everything from his bicep down to his forearm was completely gone and only held on by tendons. Doc had looked over and saw me and Specialist Ole working on Sergeant Blake, and he said, Johnson, continue to patch up Blake, and while he worked on Rogers. I remember when we were in the truck, I think Doc and I had worked on applying the tourniquet right away to Jeff on his arm, and we also made sure there was a tourniquet on his leg. Once we were out of the truck, I took care of Sergeant Blake and I put bandages on the back of his neck, covering the laceration. Doc had worked on taking care of Jeff, and seemed all so quick, all so fast. Almost immediately, the Black Hawk was landing, and I was helping and assisting to get the both of them onto the helicopter. Last words that Sergeant Blake had told me was not to smoke his cigarettes. At that time, I had been smoking with Sergeant Blake and Jeff. But after that night, I quit completely. I look back on this event and I reflect at just how everything worked out and how responsive everybody was and how everybody knew what had to be done. And I know it's because of the training and because of the leadership that people like Doc Walters had given. The great training and dedication that he'd put towards his MOS and being a medic, and a damn good medic, and making sure that we were all trained in combat life-saving. he knew that he could trust me and Ole and everybody else within the platoon to do the right thing. It takes a lot of courage. Looking back and speaking with both him and Jeff, others that were there that evening, people always say that, because of the actions that Doc Walters did and the actions that I did, we helped in saving Jeff and Pascal Blake's lives. Jeff thanks me almost every few days. He calls, we check in, we still talk to each other, and he thanks me for saving his life. And in a way that night, I think he saved mine. He lost his arm. He lost his opportunity to continue to be in the military, and he was discharged medically. He was an active man, did rock climbing, bouldering, skiing. He always pushed me to be better. And after that night, that was all kind of taken away from him. And so I told myself, you know what? It's my duty to be the best damn soldier I can be the best NCO someday. And that's what I did. I tried to give back to people like Jeff, Sergeant Blake, Doc Walters, to be the best I could be, because that's what my soldiers deserved when I became an NCO. And I'm very proud to have known Doc Walters. And I believe he deserves the chance to go to this Audie Murphy board and be recognized for his dedication, his service, his loyalty, the duty he gives, the respect that he's shown all of his soldiers, the selfless service that he gives, his honor, his integrity, and his personal courage that he showed that evening. Doc Walters will always, in my heart and mind, be the best damn medic that I have ever had.